also it's really interesting comparing this to the Asian identity is that like I feel like for me and maybe for you, we grew up in very collectivist kind of family structures where it's like, okay, you're working to help out the entire family, or like you're part of some kind of harmonious relationship with your family. But when it comes to like studying in academia, I feel like Asians are some of the most individualistic people. Like, okay, like I'm going to study by myself. I can't work with anyone else. I'm going to do it by myself. Right? And it's like that kind of distinction was really hard for me to make because like, you know, growing up it was always like, oh, like work with the community, help out with the community. Thank you. And then like whenever it came to studying, it was like, okay, you're on your own. You're in this room by yourself. And sometimes like the silence is very loud when you're studying by yourself.
Absolutely. I think this comes from competition.
Yeah,
we see each other as competitors rather than people that can also get us ahead. Scarcity and competition and mistrust. And there's no worse feeling. Well, first of all, I was totally the kid that like other people's parents compared their own kids to growing up. I feel so bad. I've had it said in front of me, why aren't your grades as high as Jason's or something like that? But there is no, I feel so bad for them because there is no worse feeling than when I got compared to another Asian kid who is doing better than me.
You said you grew up in like Asian tutoring center spaces, right?
Yeah.
How was it like for you?
They rank you.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, they rank you. God. They read out all your test scores out loud. You motivates you to work harder.
Oh my God, you were that kid.
I feel like we're shifting away from that now with future generations.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I think one of the key distinctions to succeed here, and I think a lot of Asian American parents are catching on, is you have to think outside the box. You have to play towards an interest and a strength rather than just doing what everyone else is doing. So, for example, you have to find out what your kid likes and then roll with it. Yeah. And instead of like forcing something that's like, you know, forcing like a robotics competition, like listen to them, maybe listen to how they want to do things, give them space to like perform it and do it and come up with their own ideas too. So one example is like in the example of robotics, like you cannot study robotics, you have to practice robotics, you have to create your own ideas. And I think Asian parents are catching on that like every kid is different and you need to play towards those strengths. And I think everyone is catching on. Find what your kid is interested or good at and build something from there rather than putting something onto them. One thing that helps is giving a kid free time. I had a lot of free time now that I think about it as a kid, and how I would spend that is alone in my room, playing with Legos and having them talk to each other as if it was like a play. Now that's my job. I write plays. Another thing was like video game. When you leave me alone in my free time, I found out I like video games. Have I considered making them? And then I took a few classes and have a lot of video game like production knowledge now.
I wonder to what extent your life and career especially would be different had you been given the opportunity to really work on the things that you enjoyed as a kid instead of being forced into this breadth of like different extracurriculars.
I think I would have ended up here on an earlier timeline. That's it. I think I was meant to be doing what I'm doing, and if I was given the freedom, for example, I didn't start doing any performing arts until high school. I had always wanted to. I applied for the middle school play every single year but could never get in. In high school, I applied for acting classes 4 semesters in a row, and I didn't get in. And on in my last semester of senior year, I had to beg the teacher to let me audit and get into an acting class.
Wow.
Yeah, where I wasn't even able to go see all the shows because I was an auditor. Little do I know, I went to acting school after that. If I had the opportunities to practice what I liked from an earlier age, I would have gotten a head start and still be where I am now.
There's a little bit of grievance for that, for our younger selves, because in a way that we've been kind of failed at like giving the opportunity to do the things that we would have had so much potential to do. Like imagine like 7-year-old Jason like being able to see a Lego acting play and imagine like the kind of like joy that would spark in your eyes,
having my interests like reciprocated by other people and by activities. That would have been so great. Instead, I learned, okay, my activities are something I keep for myself, and that took me for a long time.
Yeah.
Speaking of like video games, I was huge on video games.
What kind of video games did you play? Like, what's the evolution of your? Because I also did video games.
For most of my life, I'll keep it short. I played this one game called League of Legends. For a long time, it was the most popular game in the world, and it was all I would play in high school. I even became, at one point, the president of the League of Legends club with like 200 members or something.
Whoa.
And organized tournaments. And I also was the captain of our League of Legends team, and we made it to top 32 in America. under my captainship. If I could do anything different in high school, I would have all in on my League of Legends. That was something I knew I loved to do. Played that interest out fully. I would have let that impulse, like, okay, in my high school, all I could care about this one game that gave me validation, that made me feel I'm good at something, that involved other people. I would have played that impulse out fully. Maybe it would lead me to be addicted forever. Maybe it would lead me to the next impulse. I will never know unless I fully uninhibit that impulse, and maybe I went, like, maybe I committed fully to being the president of the League of Legends club instead of dropping out after like one semester because I had to focus on studies.
Right.
One thing I'm learning, I graduated from NYU with a 4.0, is that grades have done nothing for me. Doing well in my classes have done nothing for me.
It's so true.
Yeah. But what has done things are novel experiences and people. The people I have met in college are the ones I'm doing projects with. The experiences that I've treated myself to in college. For example, I really liked VR in college. I took a VR class, and then I got to work on the teacher's VR production, and I got to find out, okay, I don't like it. I don't like working on VR theater, but there are skills that I want to take to future productions. Those kinds of experiences where I follow what I believe that I like and I'm interested in and want to work on have done mounds, 10 times more than me that like doing well in a class has. So I would trade grades for like experiences any day.
And also like relationships, right? Like, which is why
yeah.
I'm saying that like the kind of, I guess like the kind of intuition that we've like created at an early age of like, okay, I need to prioritize my grades over making friends, did not help us at all in the long run.
It's because everyone can have good grades. The most important, the easiest way to distinguish someone is by what they've done.
Yeah, and also like, what kind of person are you too? Like, are you someone like having good grades? Like, sure, like obviously, like for people who do have good grades, like the tablet, it definitely takes a lot of effort, a lot of like hard work into it. No one just gets good grades out of just being smart for the most part. Like even smart people work really hard for the good grades. Yeah. But having good grades is not the defining feature of your life. Like you're not going to constantly be tested, especially standardized testing, right? Like the only reason standardized testing exists is because there's such a large plethora of students,
and you need to narrow it down,
and a shortage
somehow.
of teachers. And how do you categorize everyone, right? So you standardize them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like there's no kind of like testing system like that in any facet of your life unless you're going into the education sphere or something that also requires like school again.
Most parts of life, they don't need a test. They need to know who you are, what you're good at, and your history of doing good things and being of value to people.
Yeah, which is why like I really like that you and like a lot of tutors are there to support students when like things like test anxiety, because now your whole esteem is built off of these exams. And I feel like that's something we really, both of us really struggled with in high school, middle school, growing up, because when you have such a heavy emphasis on scores, your life depends on that, right? It's like I need for my parents' approval, for like recognition, for like recognition from my peers too, because like it starts to get into everyone's heads where like now your whole environment is like what you get on this test, right? And it's like such a simple question, but it's filled with toxicity.
And then life is so much bigger than that. Like
It's
what
so
if
much
high schoolers identify themselves like, I like doing like step, or like I like dancing on this team. I admire these people who are able to lay claim to things they're interested in, and I wish I had laid that claim with mine. My thing was video games. I wish I owned it fully. But
now you can communicate that to your next generation of students.
I always tell, I gave college advice to a kid who's going to college this past weekend, and my thing was the same. I recommended the book Defining Decade. It's a book for people in their 20s who are building, the first chapter is about identity capital. That's basically when you go and do different things and talk to different people and build experiences, that is currency with your identity that you can use to build to other experiences. If I like took a part-time job as like, let's say, EMT, maybe it was like just like an internship. That is something that is identity currency that I can use, not just to become another EMT, but any other place I want to do. I can talk about my experience there and use it to get me into, like, let's say, grad school for anything. Build identity capital, build experiences, because grades are not going to follow you.
How did your student react to hearing that?
He was like, oh, but don't grades matter? Which is true.
Oh my God. Because here's the thing, we're looking at it from outside the system, right? Because we've exited the system, we've exited the sphere of academia. But when when you're in it, like, I don't blame you if you have that kind of mentality.
Not at all.
Everyone is like, that's really funny.
Everyone wants the same thing, so yeah, we'll go get it. And naturally, if you do well in your grades, that probably means you're doing well with like the information, making good relationships anyways. It's like a signifier that you're making good progress, but it cannot be the only one.
Yeah.
And so I guess my signifiers now, whenever I think of like, how successful am I doing in life, I think of, am I spending quality time with other people doing anything? It could be, am I playing video games with people? Or it could be, am I like going to writers group with other writers, or going and seeing plays and talking about them with people? Am I engaging in social experiences and novel experiences that might lead me to a next one? That's one of the metrics of like how well I'm doing.
Also, when you're young, your brain is so malleable that it's easily transformed by like life experiences. And I feel like one thing I grew about from my childhood is that I gave myself a dearth of those experiences. I have no experiences to look back on other than I studied. But here's the thing, like I genuinely don't remember like half the times I studied for exams because it's like it all blurs into this single image.
It's the same action over and over again. Life is so much bigger than one action.
Yeah, exactly. It blurs into this single image of you sitting in your desk with a book in front of you and like looking at a computer and like, you know, this action of like up, down, up, down. But if you like, let's say if you traveled at a young age, right? And of course like traveling is a privilege and not everyone can get. But like even if you did something like you went to the mall with your friends and you like had these really fascinating conversations, those are life-changing. Those can be like what's it called? Identity currency. Yeah. Right?
Identity capital currency.
Oh yeah, exactly.
All of that.
I realized I started to gain a really, really deepened appreciation and interest for psychology starting in college because I think mental health was always something that a lot of students struggled with, like in high school, middle, like all the grades, but especially like in high school. And it was talked about to a degree, but it almost seemed like a lot of people talked about it without knowing what they were talking about because there wasn't enough like awareness and knowledge about it. But starting in high school, I really started to question like, why am I like this? Or like, what is this? And I started learning about things like neurodivergence, which I was never a word in my vernacular prior to college.
Okay, yeah. If I can info drop one like psychology thing that was the most helpful thing for me, it was researching attention and ADHD. I think our attention spans are getting like shorter and shorter and shorter because like stimulation is right at our fingertips. If there are any parents watching this, you know. And when I started to learn about like attention, I started to realize, oh, maybe I wasn't lazy. Maybe I was just like getting distracted by these devices that are meant to usurp my attention and take everything away from me. Maybe there is some sympathy to be had for myself and ways I can change so I have more attention instead of just like bashing myself over and over. So there is this research on ADHD and depression. ADHD can cause depression, but depression rarely causes ADHD. This is because people who have ADHD have problems organizing that inhibits them from succeeding in life, and they blame themselves. You know, they fall behind in life. One example that is commonly used is called the birthday party. If you are a kid who has ADHD, then because you're annoying or distracted all the time, no one is going to invite you to their birthday party. What's going to happen is you are losing out on an experience where you are building social skills and feeling valued in a community. That's going to ripple into life, and it can cause depression when you do not have a social circle and you are like experiencing challenges in your life that you think are your fault.
That's interesting. I didn't realize, because I also heard that like mental illness causes like neurodivergent types of thinking or like atypical neuro like thinking. But I didn't realize, like, it makes sense though, because like having like things that are seen as like, what's it called? Like I think a lot of people see ADHD as like a disability because it's like so stigmatized, right? It's like so looked down upon. It makes sense that in such like a normal focused world, people with ADHD or neurodivergent kinds of thinking would feel like, what's wrong with me? Like the question of what's wrong with, and there's this, okay, so I have a book I want to recommend, and it's by Dr. Bruce Perry, who's like a neurologist, works with a lot of child trauma studies, and Oprah Winfrey. And the entirety of the book is just like an interview style of like, what happened to this kid? Like, why is he acting up like this?
Yeah.
Or like, what kind of trauma did he grow up with? And the thing I really like about this book is it's called What Happened to You, because it focuses on rephrasing the question from what's wrong with you to what happened to you.
Yeah.
Because when you're a kid and like you don't know any better, like a lot of people will ask like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you acting up? But the reality is that there's nothing wrong with you. You are only a product of the environment that you grew up with and who you inherently are, right? So it's like, what happened?
Oh yeah, here's my what happened. There was this one time in 4th grade where we had been following American Idol or something, and there was this one opera singer named Paul Potts, not to be confused with Paul Pot. There was this one opera singer named Paul Potts who surprised our class one day by coming into our class and surprising us and talking about his experiences with his wife. And and they made some videographers came to make a documentary out of that visit to a class. All I had to do to be featured in the documentary is bring a permission slip to my parents for them to sign. For an entire month, I was asked multiple times to do it. I forgot. I forgot to bring it in. And of course, you know, in elementary school, I would just forget to do my homework. I thought I was lazy, but no. Maybe instead of just me being forgetful and lazy, maybe there are things in my life that are taking too much of my attention. Maybe I'm too much uninhibited access to devices. Maybe I spend too much time alone and that causes me to stimulate myself with like addictive activities.
Also, you weren't aware of like your kind of thinking processes, so you didn't have like a backup plan. So like if like for example, if you knew like, okay, I will forget this, like I know myself, I will do ABC instead.
Yeah, no one had like taught me how to organize or that I needed help organizing. They would just like organize better.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Because it's a world that's literally catered for neuronormal people, right?
Yeah.
Or typical, what's it called? Neurotypical people. Neurotypical people. But there's no kind of like recipe or guideline for people like us. And so we felt very out of place in this world. And I'm so sorry that happened. Like, I bet it killed you.
I will link the video. I will link you the video of that I am the only name in my class that is not featured because I never signed that permission slip.
Oh my god.
I will link it if I can. But yeah, so I guess that translates to what I do now as a tutor is if I notice, as someone who's still recovering from attention issues and organization issues as a kid, if I notice my kid has a bunch of papers folded together and is bringing it to class, I'm going to give you a folder. If I notice you're having trouble remembering what you learned in class, I'm going to write you index cards and teach you how to write index cards so you can just have that information ready for you on hand. I like to work on the soft skills that these kids have, so no one is teaching them and they're just blaming themselves without it.
Because schools don't, again, this is back to like how schools do standardize for everything, right?
They want you to meet their standards. They don't want to help you reach them.
Because and also like, because like the teachers are like, okay, there's 30 kids, you all are just going to have the same treatment and suck it up, right? Which is why I really like how tutoring, like not only does it make it a safe space to ask questions, to learn to be vulnerable, because learning is a very vulnerable experience, right? But it also gives you the chance to learn at whatever you feel comfortable with. Like the world is now fit to your standards.
Yeah.
It's a very personalized
the ways that you might need help. Someone is listening to the way that you work and analyzing in their head if there's anything that they can like supplement with how you learn. If you are a bad rememberer, or then maybe that tutor can give you like a bunch of practice instead of just more facts, a bunch of questions instead of just more textbook readings. There's someone catering to you.
And do you see the effects of that like coming out when you tutor with these kids? Like, do you see them like growing from this? Do you see them like drawing any kind of resentment from this?
I hope there is a difference. It's hard to see. You know, kids are some of the most ungrateful people on the planet, you know? It's like you could change, like for example, my 4th, 5th grade teachers changed my life. Did I ever tell them that? No. 20 years later, I tried.
You tried? Really?
Yeah, I tried. I reached out. There was this one 5th grade teacher I have named Miss Russo. I still have to visit her. She read her class in 5th grade, Curious Incident of Dog in the Nighttime, which is like an 8th grade book. Yeah. And solved logic problems with us. That changed my life. Yeah, that built a love that I have for problem solving, is one of the teachers introducing that book to me. So I thanked her like a year ago or two, and then she responded and was like, oh, yeah, here's how things are doing now.
Does she remember you?
She remembers me. She remembered me.
Wow.
My kids are some of the most ungrateful people. I will never know the impact I am having on them. I hope it's good, but I am seeing kids walk away like more organized, better soft skills, remembering more with every class, going into a rhythm, having wants and patterns as to how they learn, I think that stuff is very important.
I think one of the most fulfilling things about being a teacher, like Miss Russo, you're really grateful for her and about how like she helped you through a lot of that. That's gonna be you one day, because the thing about, and I know, it's like really like, it's like very like my skin like prickles when I think about it, but like the thing is like right now, like we're living in the present, and in the present right now we're like, okay, let's help these kids out, right? But like 10 years from now, these kids are not gonna be like kids. They're gonna be like, they're gonna be like us, right? And at that point, they're gonna learn the sense of like gratitude and appreciation. And the thing is, you're there with them at such a important part of their life, right? Like we talk about how younger kids are so valuable, right? And you're there in their most formative parts of life. They're gonna come back and be like, oh my God, remember when Jason made me flashcards because no one at school could teach me these concepts and I felt like such an imposter. But I had my safe space with this like tutor that just comes to my house and like makes this math feel like a safe space for me. And so I think...
I hope I can do that. I hope they go on to do it for other people too.
Yeah. And it's like we also relate to it, right? So we're able to carry on the things that we wish had happened to us to like the next generation. And that's what I think is like, it's like very, very fulfilling about teaching.
Absolutely. I will get people to organize and remember things.
What age do you think it was hardest for you to keep structure?
7th and 8th grade. I had a lot of difficulties studying and organizing because the transition from public school to middle school is like a very delicate one, and in middle school is like, it's just the worst time of your life. There's a lot of things going on. But I think specifically in high school, I had trouble finding a pattern to succeed. It felt like, oh, there's a test, like throw everything in the air, try barely to pass it.
Survivalism,
Yeah,
right?
what if I had a pattern, a way of studying, like, I study every single week? What if there was a structure and routine to my weeks that maybe my parents could help me set? My parents were away for days at a time, and it was very hard to build a structure when I was the only person accountable for myself.
And you were just a kid, too.
I guess last thing, on the topic of Stuyvesant High School, it's not a bad school. I think it is a school where you are either very independent and are able to organize your time, seek out opportunities, and do those opportunities, or you have an adult that is helping you organize your schedule so that you can get to like these interests. You have someone that is supporting you. I think I needed that support. My parents were around a lot in elementary and middle school, but then high school became a very independent place.
Same,
that transition was hard. I wish that I had more people on deck to help me in what is actually a very difficult environment.
Because I think a lot of parents assume independence to be like, okay, kid, you're on your own.
Yeah,
but
and then you'll figure it out.
Yeah, but that's not how you like cultivate independence. A lot of independence is like cultivated through healthy practice of like let me be there with you and like let me slowly let you like try to support yourself. It's like training wheels on a bike and then like slowly taking them
I think
off.
the way in my head it needs to be is like, okay, what do you need before you head out? For tutoring, I try not to give the answer. I try to give you all the hints that you need in order to solve the problem that yourself at your skill level. I think as in high school, it might have been, okay, what kind of organization / help / like tutoring do you need for you to succeed on your own? That would have been a great way to approach it.
Actually, speaking of that, that just made me think of this is a really interesting question, but if you got a new student, which was your younger 8th grade self, how would you work with that student with retrospect to everything that's happened in your life? And let's say, or 8th or 9th grade student, 8th grade, 9th grade Jason, like when you're the transition into high school Jason.
Let me think. So I think if I were to take on my younger self as a student, this is kind of something I do now. I would ask them, what do you like? What do you want to do? What do you like to do? You don't have to have a solid answer. What is one thing that you've done this week that is like something you like? That's a question I ask some of my kids who I know have like no life outside of studies. I hope they don't see this. Or just I don't want them to become too tunnel visioned on studying. What do you like? Life is not perfect. We cannot always do what we like, but what we can do is learn how to do all the things we have to do efficiently and quickly so we can get to the thing that we like. So one of my favorite reasons for teaching math is I get to teach you how to get through this math so that you can go on and do other things with your life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would teach my younger self, like, okay, how do you get through all your boring subjects quickly, routinely, in order to make space for one thing each week that you want to do?
Okay, and how do you think your younger self would be? This is very meta right now, but how do you think your younger self would like receive that kind of like guidance? And also, like as a student, like what kind of study techniques or study tips would you instill on your younger self?
I think my younger self wouldn't know what to do. Like I don't think my younger self knew what they liked because they were so tunnel visioned on studying. But that is part of it. That is exploring what you like is a lifelong quest that you will have to go on. And I would love to start my younger self on that quest. And when you have something you like, everything else all falls into place. I am a writer right now, and tutoring falls into place around that writing. I naturally have come up with ways on how to tutor in a way that's sustainable for me and rewarding for me, so that when I can keep doing it as I'm writing part-time. So I guess study tip is like have a reason why you're studying. Like have a bigger goal than just surviving. And then everything else will fall into place when you are going for a goal. Have something you care about. Yeah.
That's a big question to ask like a kid, because a lot of the times like it's like when you were talking about your college student, right? It's like, oh, you know, like identity, currency, but like what about my grades, right? Like the kids are just like wired to think like, but what about my studies?
It is sad, but the thing that will tie to their success, you're gonna get into college because you like doing something. And you have a history of doing something.
That is true.
Yeah,
They're
you're going to have a major. They're going to be looking for examples where you pursued what you want to do. Like having that level of individuality beyond your studies is what's going to get you ahead over grades. And I think people are starting to see it.
Yeah, that's a really good message to end.
Thank you for leading me there. Yeah.
Well, I did not finish my pad thai.
Finish it.
Oh, no,
It's great.
It is good.
This place is amazing.
Oh,
Bring it to pack.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it to pack, but call it a day?
Let's bounce.
Okay. All right. Thank you for checking.